Let's make some DIYs for spring and summer that you can keep out all season long. Hi, I'm Allie and welcome to my channel. As you heard, we are making some very simple projects for your home decor based on some of the trends that I'm seeing for the spring and summer season. These projects are so easy, and at the end we're even going to do a little bit of an experiment with a new power tool on my channel that I'm very excited to show you. I don't want to spend too much time talking here, so let's hop into the first project. I love a good candle related project, so I wanted to make some candle holders using these two furniture legs I picked up from the hardware store. The first thing you need to do is remove that little screw that is at the top, and that's easy with a pair of pliers, and you just twist the leg until the screw is removed. Now you only need two legs for this project because you're able to cut one of them down in order to make the third candlestick, and you do want them all to be varying heights, that way this looks like a cohesive set. Now to make the stand and holder part, I'm using these 4-inch terracotta flower pot holders, I believe that's what they are. It's that little plate that goes at the bottom of your flower pot, and you can easily pick these up in the garden section at any hardware store. And to attach them, I'm using a combination of E6000 glue and Gorilla brand hot glue, and I'm putting a little bit of the E6000 on first and then a bit of the Gorilla brand glue. And I love using this combination because both are super strong adhesives, and it also gives you an instant hold with that hot glue, but then a long-term hold that's going to hold up a lot longer over time with that E6000. I just repeated those steps with all of the candle holders, and a little tip: if you want these to dry really well, I would suggest putting some heavy objects on top to weight everything together so that everything adheres very nicely. After all of the glue had dried, I'm going to go in and paint it. I'm using a tiny bit of white chalk paint and then this taupe colored paint, and I think it's in the color Khaki by Top Notch. I mixed it all together and I painted all of the candlesticks, but I'm not going to bore you with the painting. So let's do a little editing magic, and here's what they all look like after that coat of paint. I really love how these look just as they are with just the one solid color. However, I thought it'd be nice to maybe do a little bit of a whitewash effect. I think this is going to end up making these pieces either look kind of like a weathered or antique wood piece or antique stone piece, really. It's up to interpretation, but I think brushing on a little bit of that white chalk paint mixed with a bit of water and then taking a paper towel to wipe away some of the excess until I got the coverage that I liked really had a wonderful effect on these. I think they just make a really great basic home decor item. You can never go wrong with a very nice set of candle holders. Next up, let's make a wreath that is perfect for all year round, but especially right now because we're in the spring and summer season. I'm starting with a grapevine wreath, and I also took 2 bunches of these lavender stems I found here, and I actually got them at Walmart, super cheap. Walmart actually has a very great floral section for very affordable prices, so that is a good tip if you're looking to do any sort of wreath or floral DIYing. And I just removed all of the little stems from the wires, that way they were separated and ready to go. I found what was easiest for this wreath was kind of first figure out where I wanted each of the sprigs before gluing it down, so that's what you see me do here. Then I just used some basic hot glue and I glue them into place, and the best part of using a grapevine wreath is you can actually tuck the little sprigs that you're putting in the wreath underneath some of those branches that make up the wreath form, and this will really hold them into place using minimal glue and not a lot of effort. Now for my first go around the whole wreath, I just focused on covering a kind of ring around the very top just to make sure there was nice even coverage immediately on that front of the wreath. Then I started going in and kind of section by section, filling out the areas that I thought needed some more of the sprigs, bringing them onto the outside of the wreath as well as the inside ring of the wreath. Really just filling the whole thing in and making sure everything was placed nicely where it just looked aesthetically pleasing and you didn't have like a whole little bunch of the flowers in one area, then an empty spot here or there. I tried my best to divide everything up evenly throughout the entire wreath. Finally, once I had all of the full-size sprigs on, I actually set aside a couple of the other ones where I broke them apart even smaller, so I just had the little lavender bits and then some of the little like leafy stem bits, and I glued those ends in areas that looked a little sparse or where they maybe needed a little bit more purple or a little bit more green, and I really am glad that I set aside those extra little parts there because it filled in the wreath so much better than just keeping everything that singular long piece of lavender. If you're enjoying this video so far, it would mean so much to me if you would give this video a like. That is the best way to help my channel grow and get this video out to even more viewers to join us on this awesome DIY community we have right here. A trend that I'm really loving is taking cutting boards or antique looking cutting boards and then turning them into pedestal stands. So I'm using this piece of wood that I picked up at the hardware store, and on one end I traced this little saucer that's just from Dollar Tree, and it doesn't perfectly fit on the board, but I figured it's close enough for this project. And so I traced that out and then also drew on a handle that's going to be the handle of the cutting board. And then I repeated that again on the other end, but instead of a round cutting board, this is going to be a rectangular one with a handle. And then I took it outside and I used my jigsaw to cut these pieces, and I'm just starting to learn my jigsaw and get used to it, so they definitely were not perfect cuts this go around. This is really my kind of practice at trying. I thought this would be a fun project just to get used to a new tool, and that's really what it takes with power tools. There's just a lot of practice and getting used to it. So my shapes turned out not the greatest, I will admit, but I think it kind of fits in with this weathered and antique look that we're going for anyway, so I didn't let it bother me. I also used my miter saw to cut up some scrap wood and a scrap dowel just to form some little legs that are going to be the bases of these pedestals. Now back inside, I'm starting out with some 60 grit sandpaper, basically some really rough sandpaper, and I'm sanding everything up so that the edges are nice and smooth. The wood gets a little bit worn away so that it's bringing in that kind of weathered look that we're aiming for. And then I even went in with an 80 grit and sanded it down a little bit like that as well. I just wanted to go with a rougher sandpaper for this project just because I think that's going to bring out the kind of worn down look that we're going for. Once I was done sanding, I also had a wire brush in my stash, so I kind of scuffed up the wood and kind of wore away at the wood grain. It's a really cool, unique look that this creates. It's very hard to see on camera, but if you want to add some unique texture, this really does work. And then I also just started hammering some random things into the board to add some divots and dents, and really I'm just trying to age these and make them look well used and well loved. Then all you have to do is take some wood glue and attach the legs, and I just used some painter's tape to hold them in place while they dried, and then I set it aside to dry for about an hour on both of the little pedestals that we created. And now we're going to go in with some wood stain, and I'm using Weathered Oak by Minwax. I like this because it has kind of a dusty gray kind of warm tone to it, and I really like it if you're doing some sort of antique worn wood type piece like this. It just really brings out all of the wood grain in such a nice way, and it's just different than doing a darker stain like my typical early American that, if you've been following my channel, you know I absolutely love. And just to seal everything in, I recommend using a matte polyacrylic finish on top. If you enjoyed this video, then I also recommend you check out one of the other two videos that you see next to me on the screen. And that's everything I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching. Stay crafty, and I'll see you next time. Bye!